No kid's Jewish education should end at 13. Debra offers Ontario high school credits infused with Jewish learning online for teens across the province. Ministry approved, intellectually demanding, Jewishly transformative. Adraba.ca. That's ADRABA.ca. Your teen belongs here.
They want to scare us. They want to let us know that government doesn't matter, police doesn't matter. We can get at you if we want to.
Last Saturday morning, when Laya Witty arrived at Beth Avraham Yoseph synagogue in Thornhill for early Shabbat services, she had no idea what had happened there just hours before. Because the Bayit, as it's known, is an Orthodox synagogue, their congregants don't use phones or technology on Shabbat. But Witty immediately noticed something was wrong. Police cruisers were parked outside. Yellow police tape stretched across the front ceremonial doors on the street, and security volunteers and police greeted worshippers as they entered through the back doors. Just before midnight, somebody in a dark sedan had pulled up outside the synagogue. A passenger in the back seat then opened fire. Bullets shattered the glass doors, but the synagogue had installed special protective safety film, so only one bullet actually penetrated the entrance. 2 custodial staff were still inside the building at the time. Thankfully, they weren't hurt. Laya Witty is a lawyer. Her husband is a rabbi who teaches at the Bayit, and she herself volunteers on the synagogue security team. When I arrived that morning later to report on the shooting, she subtly inquired who I was and what I was doing there. I reassured her I was with the CJN. Since October 7th, her synagogue has already faced repeated protests. Anti-Israel demonstrators gathered outside the building during Israeli real estate events held there, chanting, blocking entrances, and at times trying to force their way inside. But gunfire? That was something else entirely. 8 bullets aimed at the synagogue's front doors. The attack just a half an hour before another synagogue, Shaarei Shomayim in North York, was also shot at. And earlier that same week, a third synagogue, Temple Emanu-El, targeted after Purim services. Police forces are still investigating the shootings, but Witty says even one of the officers privately worried the suspects, if they're caught, may not face serious consequences.
And the criminal penalties can't be a slap on the wrist, which is one of the things the police officer said to me yesterday. He said, I'm afraid we're going to catch the guy and find out he's somebody, who we've caught and released numerous times before.
I'm Ellin Bessner, and this is what Jewish Canada sounds like for Wednesday, March 11th, 2026. Welcome to North Star, the flagship podcast of the Canadian Jewish News, made possible thanks to the generous support of the Ira Gluskin and Maxine Granovsky-Gluskin Charitable Foundation. In recent days, we've been reporting on what the politicians, the police, and senior Jewish community leaders are saying about the 5 anti-Semitic attacks on Toronto area Jewish institutions in a single week. Even Israel's president, Isaac Herzog, personally reached out Monday to the rabbis of the 3 affected congregations, including the Bayit senior rabbi, Daniel Korobkin, to express his support and concern. Today on North Star, Laya Witty joins me to share what it felt like to see her synagogue targeted and why she fears that unless something changes, someone could eventually be killed. Welcome to the Canadian Jewish News North Star podcast.
Thank you.
Well, I'm sorry that we have to be interviewing you about this and not happier occasions, but when did you find out that the synagogue was hit?
When I arrived yesterday morning, there's a 7:30 service that my family likes to go to. And so, I'm walking up to the building and I see a police car parked literally right at the door. And sometimes they park in the parking lot, and we like that. It's a good visual presence. But he was right in front of the door. So I got up to the door and I saw the head of our security and the police officer standing there. And I spoke to Aaron first and I said, "What's with the guest?" And he said, "We got hit last night."
Did you get to actually see the damage in the front? I know it was taped off inside, but...
Yeah, they did a pretty good job of blocking it off from visibility from the inside. They put, we have a lot of movable partitions in the building that are used for various reasons, including catering reasons. So they put the highest and most solid partitions over in front of the doors. I think partly to make sure that the people on the inside wouldn't be fixated on it, but possibly also so that the mayor could do his interview from the outside without having a background of people who may not have wanted to be photographed on Shabbat.
Makes sense, makes sense. I thought it was for psychological reasons, and also maybe there's still glass there too, protecting people from stepping on it.
Yeah, there's also, a crime scene that has to be protected.
So you found out the synagogue was hit. What went through your mind?
Was anybody hurt? And I was assured that no, there were no injuries, property damage only. And thank God for that. And the second thing is, of course, what do you mean by hit? And they said gunfire. Like, okay, well, that's almost a worst case scenario. Um, the next thing that went through my head was actually something kind of ironic, which is, and it's been this way especially since the war started in 2023. I have children living in Israel, and when we go to visit them, I find that Israelis are so worried about the anti-Semitism in Canada, they're always asking me if we're okay. And my kids, when they heard about this, because they heard before Shabbat was even over here, and they were worrying about us. And, they said, we heard, are you guys okay? So they're actually more worried about us. Maybe if it's possible for children to be more worried than their parents are. But I can tell you that that is the response that I have heard in Israel in the past few years is, you Canadians are not having an easy time of it. Maybe you want to come home?
Well, that's what the mayor said yesterday to the press conference outside, that he's been speaking to congregants the mayor of Vaughan, for our listeners, and that some people were saying, all right, we're moving, we're done. We don't feel there's a future here in Canada. I know I've been hearing that and reporting about it. Did that go through your mind?
So first of all, I saw the mayor when he came in as well, and I greeted him and thanked him for, showing up for us, because it's important that he does. He definitely makes it clear to the community that he stands on our side. Um, I have a lot of pulls to Israel. As I say, I have children there. I have grandchildren there. Um, is there a future for the Jewish community in Canada? I mean, my family has a long history, and I think I mentioned this to you yesterday, of seeing trouble coming and getting out of the way. One of my great grandmothers left Russia before the revolution because her parents were killed in a pogrom. My mother's side of the family left Poland when the Nazi propaganda was such that Jewish businesses were being targeted. Not Jews yet, Jewish businesses. And my great grandparents left, and they begged the rest of their family to come, and they didn't. And so, we have pictures of them. I have kids named after them. But yeah, there's a lot of feeling of what are we waiting for exactly here?
You said that you were going to an early service, 7:30 in the morning Shabbat service. What did you ask God, and why? What do you want the Canadian authorities to know about your conversation?
I asked God to watch over my son, who is currently called up in the Israeli army, and all of the military and security forces. And I think it is important to know that our synagogue, every service, because we have multiple ones going on, every service in our synagogue says every week a prayer for the Canadian government. And one of the lines in it is that God should give them the wisdom to deal justly with us and with others. And that's what I want the Canadian government to know, is that not only do we obviously support the Canadian government, but we pray for the Canadian government. We pray for them to do the wise and just things that need to be done to maintain order. I'm a lawyer, by the way, so maintaining order is a part of my life. Um, we trust God to put into their hearts the wisdom and the compassion, and to know where that compassion should be directed.
So was God listening, and has the Canadian government been listening?
God's always listening, okay? I mean, we pray to God every single day. multiple times per day. Um, Even people who don't recite formal prayers, I think a lot of Jews just have a constant mental dialogue with God. I wish the Canadian government was listening when we tell them, listen, we know how this story ends. It ends in bloodshed. I don't know if they believe us.
Today, there was a big press conference with many public safety figures, police, MPs, members of the city council, promising they're going to speed up the grants for security infrastructure and promising to bring in all levels of police to stop this. This is in Canada. This is okay. So your synagogue just got hit despite having $300,000 worth of security infrastructure stuff, hardware, cameras, guards for the past few years. So I'm wondering how this sits with you.
I personally am a security volunteer. I probably didn't mention that to you before, but I don't remember when Byte actually started having security volunteers. I think maybe 2007, 9, whenever it was. I've been on it since then, okay? I stand at the door and I check bags and I give people the once over at the door. And, if somebody looks like a stranger, I ask them questions. I think maybe we can keep them out of our shul. But how am I supposed to protect somebody walking past a kosher bakery? Because that's the level at which this is going. It's going to go.
Restaurant on Old Avenue Road was shot up last week, the same day as Temple Emanu-El, and got 20-something bullets.
And it's not just going to be us. It's going to be some random person walking past. The 2 people that were inside Byte when the attack happened, they're custodial staff, okay? They're not Jewish. And some of them have been there for a long time. Some of them are new or whatever. The point is, one of them could have gotten hurt. And who's got anything against them? Plus, as I always say, the anti-Semites, they have nothing to gain by hurting us. Nothing. What, they need that corner for something?
So what do you think the message was trying to send to the congregation?
They want to scare us. They want to let us know that government doesn't matter, police doesn't matter. We can get at you if we want to. That's what they want us to hear, is that just like we can spray gunfire at 11:50 p.m., we could have done it at 11:50 a.m. when there were 250 people walking home from Saturday morning services. I'm sure you were there at the end of the service. There are literally hundreds of people, families with strollers, old people with walkers, that just like they could, as I say, God forbid, spray gunfire at that building in the middle of the night, they could do it in the middle of the day, and no one could stop them from doing it. We could react to it. I can throw my body on top of somebody. I can't shoot back.
So what are people saying? Are they pulling their kids from the schooling? Are people canceling coming to services? Yesterday, it seemed there was lots of people there, but I don't know. What do people
first of
tell
all,
you?
yesterday, no one would have known, including our president, who I believe you met. No one knew until we got there because we don't answer our phones. We don't look at WhatsApp. Okay, we're an Orthodox congregation, and we didn't know till we got there. I don't believe there will be a fall off in attendance at services. Actually, our president, Yaakov Adato, he came in and he said, yes, something happened, but remember that what they want is for us to stop doing what we do, and that the way to fight them is to continue to come to shul, continue to live your normal life. And I have to say that living a normal life is the best revenge against terror. Going to the playground with your kids, going to synagogue to pray, shopping in the stores, doing the normal things is the best revenge against terror, because it tells them you're not going to decide what happens in my life. Unfortunately, Iran has decided something for me, because my flights to Israel to see those grandkids have been canceled by Air Canada as of yesterday. So I might not get there. I don't think I'm going to get there for Pesach this year. And that the terrorists get to decide when I see my grandkids and what I'm doing for Pesach, that sits very wrong with me. Very, very wrong.
So do we know any proof or, from the video or what have you, that these people whoever it was, the suspect or suspects who shot up at the synagogue were connected to some kind of terrorist organization, or was it just a rat? Like, who do we know anything about who it is?
The police.
Just because
It's
you
an
said
active.
Iran, right? Iran is responsible for some of the things, but is this a
Yeah, do I
target
know?
because
I
of a
don't know. Could be, homegrown white nationalism. Could be all kinds of things. I don't really care. Whoever it is, I want them to get the message that they don't scare us and that they're not going to get away with it. And getting away with it, that's up to the government. We can't do anything. But as far as not scaring us, that's what I really want them to know, is that they don't scare us. Many generations of Jews had to live in fear. This generation doesn't.
One thing I do need to bring up, thank you for that. I wanted to just remind the audience, and it's not a secret, that the city of Vaughan brought in, quote, bubble legislation in response to violent, chaotic protests outside the Bayit in 2024, 2023, when there were Israeli real estate trade shows, I guess you call it, in the synagogue. And then
Saw
it
that
got
too.
out of control, right? And I'm wondering, the bubble legislation didn't work.
Because it wasn't enforced.
Right. So what are the police? I mean, you're a security volunteer and a lawyer. What should police be doing differently, or civic government be doing differently, if anything?
Well, they could enforce the bubble legislation. That'd be nice. I mean, our synagogue has an amazing array of cameras. You might have noticed it behind the security desk. There are over 30 views of the building. Somebody who came in once with, I think, an MP's security detail saw it and said he had never seen anything like it outside of a casino. Okay. We've got eyes all over the building. So if you come near our building, you're on camera. I would like for the city to have eyes on the street. It won't prevent anything except maybe to let people know that you will be caught, because once we see your car, we can catch you. I mean, it's not, even I can trace a license plate. It just costs money. The police can do it immediately, and they'll get your name and they'll get your address. And the criminal penalties can't be a slap on the wrist, which is one of the things the police officer said to me yesterday. He said, I'm afraid we're going to catch the guy and find out he's somebody, who we've caught and released numerous times before. That was his worst fear, was that it's going to go into the justice system and not be dealt with the severity that it should be.
No, you're a personal injury lawyer, not a criminal,
Yeah, I
defense.
don't even do criminal defense, but I know about it.
Just to make sure the audience knows, right? I really appreciate these comments and your perspective as a member of the congregation and also part of the security volunteer detail. And also, I now know why you were giving me the nice treatment when I came in yesterday, even though, I'm a Jewish woman with only good intentions, but I appreciate the extra 2 eyes.
Anybody who looks lost in that building, I'm going to ask them if they know where they're going.
I only wish you better news and safety for your congregation and for your family abroad. Only good news.
Thanks, and we wish the same for you and for all your listeners.
Before we go, here's a few developments in this story. The Bayit Synagogue has now launched a fundraising campaign seeking $250,000 on GoFundMe to strengthen security, including guards and cameras, reinforced doors, upgraded alarms. That's on top of roughly $300,000 in federal security funding the synagogue already received in recent years. Temple Emanu-El is also now raising money to repair damage to its building. Meanwhile, Ontario Premier Doug Ford says he's considering so-called bubble legislation that would prevent protests from blocking places of worship in the province. And the mayor of Aurora, north of Toronto, has asked his council to draft a similar bylaw there. And that's what Jewish Canada sounded like on this episode of North Star, made possible thanks to the Ira Gluskin and Maxine Granofsky Gluskin Charitable Foundation. What do you think Canada should do after 3 Toronto synagogues were targeted and the U.S. consulate in Toronto was also shot at this week? Write to us. We're at info@thecjn.ca. Our show is produced by Zachary Judah Kaufman and Andrea Varsany. Michael Freeman's the executive producer. Alicia Richler is the editorial director. Thanks for listening.